But that's the point of the show. It's not to be an adrenaline junkie. It's just to show people, look, these are the people who are building our world. They're tending to our civilization. This is what they do every single day.
Say that again.
Audubon Insectarium insect rearing facility.
So you rear insects here?
Right.
Dirty Jobs was the ultimate tribute to blue-collar workers, spotlighting the gritty, dangerous, and often disgusting jobs most people ignore. Host Mike Rowe tackled sewers, slaughterhouses, and septic tanks with humor, humility, and deep respect for the workers who keep America running. The show wasn't glamorous or scripted. It was raw, real, and sometimes hazardous. Every episode walked a fine line between comedy and danger, with tasks that tested the limits of the crew. Despite its popularity, Dirty Jobs eventually disappeared from the air, leaving fans wondering why. Was it the danger, the difficulty, or something behind the scenes? Join us as we explore the harsh truths behind the show and the reasons it was ultimately shut down. The authenticity Dirty Jobs carried is what made the series a phenomenon, but it's also what brought it down. Before diving deep into its downfall, let's go back to how it all started in the first place. The rise of Dirty Jobs. When Dirty Jobs first aired in 2003, nobody expected it to become a big hit with the viewers. It wasn't exactly polished, didn't have a celebrity cast, and even broke almost every rule of television production. Yet it soon became one of the most watched shows on the Discovery Channel, turning an unassuming segment about sewer inspectors and animal farmers into a cultural statement about hard work, humility, and the kind of grit America seemed to have forgotten. The idea didn't begin in a boardroom or a marketing pitch. It started with a story told by Mike Rowe about his grandfather, a man who could build or fix just about anything. He often said that his grandfather was the smartest man he ever knew, despite never finishing high school. That respect for skilled labor stuck with him, and years later, when he found himself working as a TV host, he decided to explore the world his grandfather had always embroidered. The world of people who worked with their hands. Before Dirty Jobs, he had been doing voiceovers, narrating documentaries, and hosting various programs. But he wasn't yet the household name he would become. The concept for Dirty Jobs evolved from a small segment he produced for a local San Francisco show called Somebody's Gotta Do It. It was meant to be lighthearted, with Mike tagging along with everyday workers, but audiences reacted differently. They weren't laughing at the workers, something unexpected happened instead. They were connecting with them. Something was refreshing, even heroic, about watching ordinary people doing extraordinary tasks with quiet dignity. When the Discovery Channel saw the potential hidden within this concept, they took a gamble. There was no script, no glamour, and no fake reality drama. Just Mike, a camera crew, and the dirtiest, most dangerous jobs in America. The formula shouldn't have worked, yet it did. Part of the magic was Mike himself. He wasn't a detached host observing from the sidelines. He dove right in, whether it meant crawling through sludge, castrating livestock, or cleaning out septic systems. He wasn't pretending to be a hero, but also an active participant and equal. He laughed at his failures, admitted his disgust, and approached every worker with respect and curiosity. That vulnerability made viewers trust him. He didn't sanitize labor, but presented it in its truest form: tough, messy, essential, and deeply human. Each episode pulled back the curtain on the kinds of jobs society depends on, but rarely acknowledges. Sewage treatment workers, bridge painters, roadkill collectors, and coal miners suddenly had faces and stories. There were no actors, no rehearsals, no second takes. The show's rawness became its authenticity, and its authenticity became its charm. Yet, what really set Dirty Jobs apart was its timing. America was changing. The early 2000s saw the rise of reality TV built on competition and humiliation. People eating bugs for money or vying for romance under artificial spotlights were starting to get common. Amid that noise, Dirty Jobs felt different because it wasn't about fame or fortune. It was about work, identity, and pride. It reminded audiences that there was still dignity in getting your hands dirty, that the backbone of the country wasn't made in corner offices, but on factory floors and job sites. The show's success grew beyond ratings. Schools and trade organizations began citing it as an inspiration for students to pursue skilled labor careers. Parents watched it with their kids, not just for entertainment, but as a life lesson. Even economists praised Mike for reigniting respect for vocational work during a time when trade industries were struggling to find new talent. Still, not everyone understood Dirty Jobs. Some executives thought the show was too unrefined, too blue-collar to appeal to mainstream audiences. Others questioned how long people could watch a man shovel manure before changing the channel. But every time Discovery hesitated, the numbers told a different story. They watched millions of viewers tune in, week after week, to see where he would go next, and it wasn't just Americans watching. The show found an audience on a global scale, especially in countries where labor, too, had been pushed to the background in favor of technology and convenience. His blend of humor, empathy, and authenticity translated across borders, proving that hard work and respect for it are universal. By its third season, Dirty Jobs was no longer just a show. It was a cultural mirror, holding up the reality of the working class at a time when much of the media had moved on. His ability to humanize people, which society often ignored, became his trademark. He didn't glorify the filth or the danger. He glorified the people who faced it without complaint. But success came with a cost. As the show's popularity soared, so did the challenges behind the scenes. The stunts grew riskier, the jobs more extreme, and the demand for shock value crept closer to the surface. What had started as a tribute to honest labor began inching towards something totally different. A space where danger wasn't just part of the story, but the story itself. As the stakes rose, so did the tension between keeping it real and keeping it safe. The line between documentation and exploitation grew blurrier with each episode. Eventually, that line was crossed due to something no one saw coming. When danger came knocking. From the outside, Dirty Jobs looked like harmless, grimy fun. Just a man with a microphone, a camera crew, and a mountain of muck between them and a day's paycheck. Behind the humor, the banter, and Mike's effortless charm, the reality of making the show was far more dangerous than most viewers ever imagined. Each episode meant stepping into a world most people would never enter, and not just because of disgust, but because of legitimate risk. When you're standing knee-deep in a septic tank, balancing on a corroded bridge beam, or handling heavy industrial machinery without the experience of a trained worker, things can go wrong fast. And sometimes, they did. From the very beginning, the crew operated under one core rule. Nothing staged, nothing faked. Every mess, every fall, every scrape was real. There were no stunt doubles, no controlled sets, and no scripted outcomes. If Mike Rowe was bitten by a crab or nearly gassed by sewer fumes, the camera kept rolling. The production schedule was relentless. Episodes were filmed across dozens of states, often in back-to-back stretches, with little downtime. Safety gear was mandatory, but the environments were unpredictable. On more than one occasion, crew members had to evacuate mid-shoot from collapsing tunnels, gas leaks, and once, a flash flood that nearly carried away thousands of dollars worth of equipment. Mike himself faced countless close calls. He recounted being nearly overcome by methane gas in a wastewater treatment plant, bitten by snakes and rats, and once trapped inside an old grain silo when the structure began to shift unexpectedly. His quick wit might have made these moments seem like jokes on screen, but the danger was no joke to those behind the camera. He once said, "Dirty Jobs was dangerous because it had to be." You can't tell the truth about work if you're afraid to get hurt doing it. That authenticity, however, came with growing tension between the crew's creative ambition and their physical limits. Discovery Channel wanted the show to push boundaries, to go deeper, grosser, riskier. Each new season meant finding jobs that outdid the last, but at some point, the pursuit of bigger and dirtier became a gamble no insurance company could comfortably back. The danger wasn't only physical. For Mike and his team, the constant exposure to environments of decay, death, and disease began to take a psychological toll. The show wasn't filmed on pristine stages or clean construction sites. It was filmed in slaughterhouses, morgues, and waste facilities, the kind of places where the smell alone could trigger nausea and where death was a daily sight, not a storyline. Crew members often described an odd numbness that set in over time, a quiet detachment that helped them get through each shoot. You can't record hours of animal remains, sewage runoff, or industrial accidents without developing a mental shield, but even Mike admitted that shield sometimes cracked. He often said that the hardest part of Dirty Jobs wasn't what he saw, it was what he felt. The gratitude and pride of the workers differed greatly from how invisible they were to society. He mentioned starkly in one interview, "People think the job is gross, but the real discomfort comes from realizing how much we depend on people we never think about." Still, that emotional connection came at a cost. Some jobs weren't just hard, they were haunting. Cleaning up accident sites, working alongside exterminators, or handling the aftermath of animal disease outbreaks exposed him and his crew to scenes that stayed with them long after filming wrapped. As one longtime cameraman put it, "You'd go home, shower 3 times, and still feel dirty." Not from the job, from what you saw. As the seasons progressed, the risk factor quietly increased. The producers started selecting more extreme environments, ranging from toxic waste pits to high-voltage facilities and even underground mines that had been closed for safety violations. The goal wasn't exploitation, it was authenticity. But there's a thin line between capturing the truth and courting disaster. He never wanted the show to become a spectacle of suffering. Yet, as ratings climbed, the pressure to outdo previous episodes grew. One particularly terrifying shoot involved working inside an animal rendering plant, a location that left several crew members physically ill for days. Another required them to join a cleanup team after a chemical spill, where he later admitted he questioned whether the shoot should have continued at all. That creeping sense of unease became a theme behind the scenes. The show's authenticity was both its strength and its weakness. It gave viewers an unfiltered look at the backbone of America, but it also exposed the limits of what television should capture. At one point, Discovery's safety consultants began to intervene more aggressively, enforcing stricter regulations on shoots. But for a show built on spontaneity, those restrictions sometimes clashed with the very essence of Dirty Jobs. Mike, ever the diplomat, tried to balance honesty with responsibility. You can't fake a hard day's work, but you can stop filming before someone gets hurt. That balance grew harder to maintain. Each season seemed to push a little further, and eventually, the inevitable happened. During what should have been a routine shoot in an industry no one thought was particularly dangerous, the crew made a discovery that froze everyone in their tracks. It wasn't a mechanical failure or a workplace injury. It was something else entirely. Something that turned the cameras off and forced the network to make a decision it could no longer postpone. It was the day Dirty Jobs stopped being a show about hard work and became a story about fear, ethics, and the horrifying reality that some jobs are dirty, for reasons you can't wash off. The horrifying discovery and reality. When Dirty Jobs ended, it didn't go out with a bang. There was no farewell tour, no season finale wrapping up a decade of grime and glory. One moment, Mike Rowe was wading through sludge and sewage, cracking jokes about the smell of sulfur. And the next, the cameras stopped rolling in what felt suddenly and without explanation to some. For a show that had built its reputation on raw honesty, that abrupt ending felt off. Fans didn't buy the official line about programming changes. They wanted to know what really happened, and in the absence of answers, whispers began to spread. Some say the crew saw something they weren't supposed to. Others claim there was a shoot so intense, so unnerving, that the Discovery Channel refused to air it. The story changes with every retelling, but it always circles back to one idea. Somewhere during those final episodes, Mike Rowe and his crew made a discovery that ended the show for good. No one knows for certain what that discovery was, or even if it was one single event. But there are fragments of truth scattered in interviews, podcast confessions, and offhand remarks that, when pieced together, hint at something darker beneath the surface of television's dirtiest job. The whispers began online, as they always do. In early Fan X and Reddit threads, longtime viewers noticed that certain episodes had vanished from reruns. Titles that once aired in syndication were missing from streaming libraries. No explanation, no archive notes. They were just gone. Then came the stories. One claimed that during filming inside an industrial waste facility, something went wrong. A chemical reaction, a toxic release, a discovery that forced the crew to evacuate and abandon the footage. Another suggested that a worker at a remote site confessed something to Mike on camera, something that was never meant to be public. There was even a rumor that one crew member had fallen ill after exposure to something they couldn't identify. None of it was ever verified, but the speculation filled the silence left by the show's sudden exit. It didn't help that Mike himself had never completely denied any of it. He hasn't confirmed the rumors, but he hasn't mocked them either. Instead, he's given cryptic comments that seem to toe the line between confession and reflection. His reactions, or lack thereof, have created a mystery that has become the stuff of online legend. Mike has often spoken about the toll Dirty Jobs took on its crew. The show wasn't scripted or staged, and that meant there was no backup plan when things went wrong. If a pit collapsed, if gases leaked, if a piece of equipment malfunctioned, there were no stunt doubles or safety edits. They filmed what happened, however messy or dangerous it got. By the final seasons, the stakes had risen beyond anyone's comfort level. Insiders have hinted at one particular job that never aired, where the danger became too real. A production assistant reportedly suffered breathing problems during a shoot in a confined underground space. Filming stopped. The footage was shelved. The network refused to comment, and the episode was never listed on the official schedule. Was that the horrifying discovery and moment when the show crossed its own line? No one knows. But after that, Dirty Jobs was never quite the same. The next few episodes felt tamer, safer, and less spontaneous, as though something had shifted behind the scenes. Even without a scandal, It's not hard to understand why Dirty Jobs might have reached a breaking point. What he and his crew encountered wasn't just filth, it was humanity's underbelly. They filmed inside slaughterhouses, septic tanks, bone yards, and chemical treatment facilities. They saw death, decay, and the endless churn of a country that runs on invisible labor. Some who worked on the show have suggested that the horrifying discovery wasn't a single event, but a gradual moral one. The growing awareness of what the show was really documenting, the cost of convenience. The people society ignores, the filth that never makes it into headlines but shapes daily life. Every fan theory has its crown jewel, and for Dirty Jobs, it's the lost episode. According to rumor, it was filmed near the end of the series, in a remote industrial zone. The crew reportedly spent days setting up before abandoning the site after unexpected complications. The footage, some say, was confiscated by the network. Others believe it simply sits in a vault somewhere, unedited, untouched. Of course, no proof of this episode exists. No titles, no stills, no production notes. But that's what makes the story so persistent. It fits perfectly into the fabric of a show built on danger, secrecy, and the unfiltered truth of dirty work. When Mike was once asked in a radio interview if there were any jobs he regretted doing, he paused for a moment too long before answering. He eventually replied, implying that there was one, but they never aired or talked about it. It could have been a joke, but for fans, it was confirmation that something happened. Still, as tempting as the mystery is, the real explanation might be less cinematic and more basic. By 2012, he and his team had filmed in over 300 locations across the United States. The travel, the danger, and the constant exposure to hazardous environments had taken their toll. Production insurance costs had skyrocketed. Crew injuries, while not catastrophic, were frequent enough to raise concern, and the host himself was beginning to feel it. He admitted that they were exhausted, and by then, they decided that they had shown what they came to show. Any further, and they'd just be repeating themselves, or worse, tempting fate. Discovery Channel quietly shifted direction soon after, moving toward higher drama, competition-style reality TV. Dirty Jobs, a show about real work and real risk, no longer fits the mold. For many fans, though, that explanation was never quite satisfactory. It felt too tidy for a show that was anything but. Maybe the truth lay somewhere in the middle, not a buried scandal or lost footage, but a realization that some realities simply weren't meant to be broadcast. Dirty Jobs was built on authenticity, on showing what others wouldn't dare to, but in the pursuit of that truth. The show may have edged too close to something unfilmable. He himself once hinted at that subtle reality: we didn't find monsters under the bed. What we found were people doing impossible work under impossible conditions. That's what stuck with me. That's what finally made me stop. Whatever happened in those final months, Dirty Jobs didn't end with controversy. It ended with the emotional, physical, and ethical gravity of what it had shown. Legacy. Where is Mike Rowe now? When Dirty Jobs signed off for the last time, most assumed Mike Rowe would quietly fade from the airwaves, another TV host whose moment had come and gone. But that's never been his style. The same man who once climbed into sewers and fish guts for the sake of understanding America's workforce wasn't about to stop talking about the people who built it. If anything, Dirty Jobs was just the beginning. Today, he has transformed himself from a television personality to a cultural advocate. He's no longer just the guy showing us the dirtiest work in America. He's the voice arguing that this work may be the most important thing the country has left. Since leaving the set, his mission has become broader, louder, and far more urgent. Through his Micro Works Foundation, he's funneled millions of dollars in scholarships toward students pursuing careers in the trades, from plumbers to welders to electricians to mechanics to HVAC technicians to other skilled laborers who keep the country functioning. In interviews throughout 2025, he's been blunt with his message. America has over 7.6 million open jobs that require hands-on skill, not degrees, and yet those jobs remain unfilled. Recently, he said, "We have a generation of people who've been told that success only comes from college. But the truth is, the country doesn't run on degrees. It runs on skill." His foundation's guiding principle, the SWEAT pledge, or skill and work ethic aren't taboo, has been adopted by trade schools across the U.S., serving as both a code of conduct and a cultural reset. It's less about politics and more about pride, especially reclaiming the dignity of labor in a country that spent decades glamorizing everything but. Mike hasn't abandoned storytelling. His The Way I Heard It podcast continues to reach millions each month, offering short, reflective stories that mix history, irony, and moral perspective. It's not dirty jobs, but it carries the same characteristic curiosity, humility, and touch of mischief. He's also returned to television with new seasons of Dirty Jobs and its spin-off, Road Trip, which blend nostalgia with fresh purpose. This time around, he's less the daredevil host and more the thoughtful observer, revisiting the same work through the lens of a man who's seen what happens when those jobs go unfilled. "It's not just about the dirt anymore," he said in a recent Discovery Channel promo. "It's about the people who keep showing up when the rest of the world looks away." Even in reruns, Dirty Jobs feels more relevant than ever. As automation, artificial intelligence, and remote work reshape the economy, his insistence on valuing hands-on trades has gone from nostalgic to prophetic. In recent months, he has used his growing platform to sound alarms about the state of the workforce. Appearing on programs like Newsmax, Fox Business, and The Daily Wire, he's argued that America's work ethic deficit is as dangerous as any economic crisis. At the 2025 Conservative Political Action Conference, he framed the issue as one of national security. He told the audience, "We can't build ships, fix bridges, or maintain power grids if no one's trained to do the work." It wasn't partisan rhetoric, it was pragmatism. We're losing the people who know how to fix what's broken, and that should terrify us. His message resonates across ideological lines. Whether he's talking about labor shortages, education reform, or automation, his argument is always the same. The trades aren't just jobs. They're the necessary backbone of civilization to keep the country running. While many former TV hosts chase endorsements or Hollywood comebacks, his post-television path has been different. He's launched speaking tours, partnered with the U.S. Money Reserve to discuss financial literacy and gold investment, and written extensively about economic self-reliance. But despite his success, he remains grounded. His public persona, being part philosopher, part everyman, continues to attract audiences who feel unheard beneath the noise of modern media. He's the rare celebrity who seems allergic to outrage, preferring measured conversation over division. Common sense, he often says, has become a superpower, and he's just trying to keep it intact. His current work doesn't involve wading through sewage or climbing refinery towers, but it's every bit as challenging. Instead of exploring the dirty jobs of America, he's now fighting to make sure there are still people willing and able to do them. His foundation's scholarship programs have grown tenfold since the pandemic, helping thousands of students attend trade schools and apprenticeships. He still records from his home in Northern California, traveling between speaking engagements and production shoots, occasionally pausing to post on social media about his dog Freddie or his mother, Peggy Rowe, whose humor and writing have become beloved in their own right. To those who followed Dirty Jobs from the start, it feels fitting that Mike's life remains as unscripted as the show that made him famous. There's no studio audience, no manufactured drama, just a man continuing the work he started decades ago, reminding America that hard work still matters. If Dirty Jobs revealed the forgotten backbone of America, Mike Rowe's post-show career is about preserving it. His message is no longer confined to television. It's now made its way into classrooms, workshops, and the national dialogue about what work means. He's obviously not chasing fame, but relevance, and somehow that's made him more influential than ever. Mike told a crowd earlier this year, "People think Dirty Jobs was about dirt. It wasn't. It was about gratitude, about looking at the toughest, grittiest work and realizing it's what keeps the lights on, the water running, and the world moving. That hasn't changed. It's just easier to forget." Like all great myths, Dirty Jobs never truly ended. In the end, Mike Rowe didn't walk away from Dirty Jobs, he expanded it. The show's mission lives on in his foundation, his advocacy, and his voice, still urging Americans to look beneath the surface and see the beauty in what's hard, honest, and necessary. When long-term fans think back to the show, they realize that as much as Dirty Jobs inspired, it also mystified. The vague way it ended, the cryptic comments, Mike's occasionally brought-up comment about one job that changed everything, and the fact that no single explanation was ever given. All of it brewed the perfect storm for rumor. Even years later, the so-called horrifying discovery remains a favorite topic on message boards and social media threads. Some claim the crew unearthed environmental crimes. Others say it was something supernatural, or simply something too tragic to air. He himself has never confirmed or denied any specific incident, which only fuels the myth. Even in interviews when pressed about the show's rumored secrets, he simply smiles and gives a standard comment that answers but doesn't solve the mystery fans envision. Maybe the real horrifying discovery wasn't exactly about the horror of these works that he and his crew personally experienced, but hidden in the future they could see when no one else wanted these jobs. Perhaps by then, it'll be a horrifying reality, one that Dirty Jobs had seen coming years back. What do you think of Mike Rowe's views on Dirty Jobs? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. To enjoy more exciting videos, click play on the video on your screen. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you get notified when a new video drops.